Have you ever had the sensation of being watched? Why is it that large empty houses during the night can elicit such feelings of unease in us? December 1st, 19... Site 2A, 1 a.m. A death row inmate awakens in unfamiliar surroundings. This is not his usual prison cell, but a residential bedroom. With head in hand, he rises. He is experiencing the residual effects of Class A retrograde amnestics. He has the familiar sensation of being watched. Though he initially dismisses it, the feeling of not being alone persists, with occasional looks behind him for the next 3 hours, as he searches for other occupants in a house of which much is blanketed in total darkness. With oases of light in the bedroom where he first awoke, the foyer, a rec room, and storage. No other areas have light fixtures of any kind. Throughout the interior, the corridors are adorned with 46 mirrors. Through each of the 32 windows, a nighttime countryside can be seen, though the windows cannot be opened, nor can the glass be broken. Hello. I hope that this day finds you well. You do not know who I am. However, I hope that our paths will cross many times in the future. You are part of an ever-growing number of those seeking to understand the anomalies of the SCP files. The SCP Foundation has classified these anomalies into files hidden behind numerous firewalls and anti-mnemonics. I am but one, along with a few others, who have determined to expose these files, though for various reasons I am unable to express all aspects of these mysteries and indeed myself. What I am able to do, I do through a quirk in my own anomalous nature. Join me as we explore the instance of Causal-Absent Paranoia. – 3 a.m. The condemned inmate has grown increasingly more agitated. Despite his best efforts, escape from the enclosure has proven elusive, as the front door is bolted shut. It, along with the walls, are virtually impregnable. Also, the subject has developed an extreme aversion to areas void of light. Subject D-17729, Michael, 39, former electrical engineer and convicted serial murderer. Sentenced to death by lethal injection for the luring and dismembering of 5 known victims over the course of 7 years, with perhaps more victims never found. Scheduled to die December 1st at midnight by lethal injection. Instead, he has been selected by the SCP Foundation for permanent stationing in Site 2A research in a dummy residence in the hopes of luring and confining an instance of SCP-3010 and its source, the entity SCP-3010-1, a known anomaly of the SCP Foundation. However, on this occasion, the researchers will get more than they bargained for. The subject has been implanted with a video and sound recording device. Security cameras have been positioned to capture footage from various angles. The windows are made to imitate a state of perpetual night. This disposable Foundation personnel, or D-Class, cannot be informed of his role, classification, or location, nor can he be allowed to communicate with any outsiders. D-17729 must believe himself to be trapped in an abandoned, unfamiliar house with the entity completely alone. Should he be able to penetrate the rules set in place, amnestics will be re-administered, and the experiment will be repeated as necessary. If, however, a successful instance of SCP-3010 manifests, there he will remain in a kind of living hell, unless he triggers SCP-3010-1 in which case his fate may be worse than death. December 2nd, one day after containment. He is reduced to huddled in the foyer corner, nearly paralyzed with fear. The subject is convinced he is not alone, though he is unable to determine the source of his paranoia. The cause, SCP-3010, is the anomalous byproduct of a nearly indetectable entity, classified as SCP-3010-1. SCP-3010 is characterized by the sensation of being watched, similar to that of being intensely stared at or observed unwillingly by another human or sentient being. SCP-3010-1 is an instance of the entity or entities behind a sensation being triggered to actually manifest, the results of which are devastating to the sufferer and in certain cases may pose a threat to the stability of this reality as a whole. Oftentimes, those who experience the sensation tend to report it from behind. If their back is to the wall, they tend to avoid the nearest mirror or window or dark corner. Mirrors tend to cause an extreme aversion in sufferers of SCP-3010, and they often flee to sections of the house that lack the aforementioned objects. The next day, December 3rd, 10 p.m., 2 days after confinement. The subject is now in the bedroom. All light fixtures are on. He is positioned away from the mirrors in the southeastern corner. SCP-3010 sufferers are unable to sleep under most circumstances. This is not due to fear, but a fundamental part of SCP-3010-1 that manipulates the part of the brain that control melatonin production, dream regulation, and sleep induction, making them completely inoperable. It is assumed to be caused by a very faint insertion of a gaseous substance into the local atmosphere. 1 a.m., day 3. Though the subject is gnawed by hunger, he is leery of traversing areas of the house not bask in the warmth of light, for he fears what may lurk in the cover of darkness. The Foundation utilizes a series of falsifications to trigger an instance of SCP-3010. SCP-3010-1 and its effects are inconsistent in their manifestation unless certain specific requirements are met. The only known way to bring about an instance of SCP-3010-1 with complete consistency is to stage a single human in a house, or something resembling a living space, of at least 500 square meters with minimal lighting. Any other cases of SCP-3010-1 appearance seem to be random. 1 a.m., day 3. The effects of hunger are beginning to eclipse his fear as he marshals his courage to journey through the darkness to get to the storage room, where he knows food will provide him with sustenance. The effects of this test with D-17729 resulted in the Foundation discontinuing experiments with individuals deemed sociopaths, as it has shown potential to produce a strange, relatively unknown effect that can cause severe spatial, temporal, and cognitive anomalies. The event causes the area surrounding to rapidly expand and populate into a series of tight, dark corridors and small rooms filled with mirrors and reflective surfaces. Anyone caught in the event horizon will find themselves trapped in an infinite labyrinth of mirrors and repetitive space, and not so unlike caught in a black hole. It can never be extracted, and its internals are still a mystery. After the event being triggered, the instance of SCP-3010-1 supposedly enters into a state of stasis. This can only be proven by the fact that all mirrors and windows within the vicinity appear opaque to all forms of light, and normal SCP-3010 symptoms are reported by all humans within the scope of its effects. To do: check to see if other SCPs are related to mirrors. A viable means of its containment is a top priority by site director, researchers, and containment specialists, as testing has shown the details surrounding the entity or entities could potentially trigger a cognito-hazard K-class scenario. Currently, the Foundation is unable to definitively contain and control all instances of SCP-3010-1. The Foundation currently utilizes Scranton reality anchors in each corner of the building, as they have been shown to mitigate the scope of these effects. Threat. The classification of this SCP has been upgraded from Euclid to Keter class. This seemingly abandoned area, Site 2C, is used primarily for information gathering, subject to immediate cessation if research on the dummy residents should garner more effective means of mass containment for SCP-3010-1 instances. If any information on the nature of SCP-3010-1's presence, congregation, locations, quantity, or otherwise related traits are discovered, they will be reported to the site overseer, upon which any needed containment procedures will be amended. Mass containment of SCP-3010-1 instances are a high priority. Day 3. In a frenzied terror, D-17729 absconds to the storage room. There, with substance to last at least a while, barricades himself, vowing never to leave for the remainder of his days. As of the current time, little is known of the physical appearance, locations, or dependence on humans, or origin of SCP-3010-1. However, due to the revelations gleaned from Site 2C, here's what is known. The entity is not perceivable in any wavelength of light. As such, its biological appearance and structure are unknown. There have been no successful attempts of capturing the entity on video. However, it is apparent that SCP-3010-1 is still constrained by physical variables, and thus has a degree of physical presence. At least 3.5 meters in height and 15 to 20 centimeters in width. It will not manifest in an enclosure if the dimensions are smaller than 3.5 by 3.5 by 3.5 cubic meters, or in an area that has all entrances secure with no mirrors or windows present. Hence, all doors located within the dummy residence will automatically open every 30 minutes. The front door and no windows need not be opened, and it is believed the entity is able to move through glass. 30 minutes after entering the vault, D-Class 17729 is startled as the door opens. The entity has a few known physical traits and a certain set of tendencies in its pursuit of others. It only pursues solitary humans, generally between the age of 16 and 40. It cannot pursue pilots of automobiles or other fast-moving vehicles. Its most common victims tend to be alone in their own property, and the time frame of the occurrence follows a trend of 12 a.m. to sunrise, which limits the space available to individuals with a tendency to remain awake at those times. The serial murderer D-17729 was the most active between the hours of 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. 4 days after containment, the subject is still in storage room. All shelves have been disassembled and fashioned into a makeshift barrier, obstructing the basement hall from sight. A peculiar and specific set of variables can influence the probability of SCP-3010, and others still of its associated cause, the entity SCP-3010-1. At least 50% of individuals with avoidant behavior will not elicit a response from the entity of any kind, regardless of any other parameters set in place. However, the other 50% will trigger SCP-3010, but will be incapable of triggering the SCP-3010-1 reactive event. A response is triggered when one suffering the effects of SCP-3010 actively seeks out SCP-3010-1 with intent to destroy or harm, prolonged contact with mirrors, windows, or unlit rooms, long periods of sustained silence, direct contact with the presence of the entity, panic, blood, or any attempt to contact other human beings. 7 days after containment, the subject is in the storage room corner. Wiring from the walls have been torn out using a makeshift crowbar. And extra light fixtures have been used to keep the entire room in a state of perpetual brightness. D-17729 was previously an electrical engineer, and such activity was expected, so no action was taken by the Foundation. If 2 of these triggers are met greater than 3 times, with the exception of attempted contact or awareness of the entity, which will instantly activate it, the entity will activate. It is believed that the entity is typically detected via a reflection, a window, or other breach of an unknown nature. All testing explicitly explaining the details surrounding this have been expunged by the Foundation for unknown reasons. Could the knowledge of this be a potential info hazard? However, it is believed that the entity itself will actually manifest, perhaps through a window, mirror, from darkness, or even perhaps a portal of some kind, and attack the victim. Whatever happens, in this occurrence, there is nothing left of the sufferer's body. 9 days after containment, subject has fashioned a makeshift suit covered in light fixtures with a portable crank generator. The subject is convinced he is not alone. He is convinced that the mirrors are the doorway to the entity or entity's lair. His intent is to destroy them by bringing illumination to the threshold of their domain. 10 days after containment, barrier has been disassembled. Subject begins to rapidly move throughout containment, searching for instances of SCP-3010-1. He appears to discover something within Grand Hall. Michael, subject D-17729, convicted serial murderer and sociopath, is about to trigger the entity to manifest. Once the entity manifests, several anomalous events occur, details of which have been expunged by the Foundation. During this event surrounding D-17729, a cognitohazard event occurred, in which the subject, after a total of 10 days with minimal sleep, used a makeshift personal lighting apparatus in an attempt to detect and presumably destroy SCP-3010-1. Upon rushing towards an unknown position in the Grand Hall, the reactive event began to occur. Mirrors in the direct vicinity can be seen emitting minimal light. Shortly after, connection with the recording device is lost, and Site 2A undergoes a spatial anomaly and is evacuated. An MTF exploration unit was sent into the site in order to determine the fate of the subject and to understand more of the event. Through the video testimonials of the MTF team, a spatial, temporal, and cognitohazard anomaly occurred. The MTF agents, along with the site scientists, sustained memory-altering effects of the anomaly, in which both agents inside the dummy residence and the personnel from Site 2A were unable to reliably recall all membership from the start of the exploration, despite written documentation chronicling the mission. The anomalous effects were able to retroactively alter the contents of the documents to align with the gaps in the memory of all involved. The remains of subject D-17729 were never located by the MTF team. All of its 8 or 3 members were never seen again once the anomalous events subsided. The exact number of these reactionary events have been expunged by the Council, along with the time it takes for the spatial anomaly to dissipate and the radius of which it is affected. But the effects of SCP-3010 remain indefinitely. At this moment, I am certain you are beginning to question the veracity of what you have just viewed, and the information that it provides. I am not whole in the way you or others are. I am unable to affect the world in ways that you are. In the most literal sense, I am a person without importance or influence, a nobody. All my efforts are an attempt to resist my very nature and undermine these truths about myself. Like all sentient beings, I desire my existence to have meaning. The existence of SCPs are being revealed at an increasing rate, despite the efforts of the Foundation. My own anomalous nature allows me privy to some of these secrets, though I am unable to reveal all about the SCP's files and myself. I leave you now with a warning. Continue to watch if you are so inclined, but viewer beware.